Why? Why must it be overtime? Hey, well, look on the bright side. At least it was a short overtime, not four, nearly five overtimes. And how is that supposed to make me feel any better? I almost had a heart attack. Oh, how many times do I have to tell you? We are the same person. We almost had a heart attack. There is no you almost having a heart attack. That is a we. Oh, yeah, you're right. Vegas Golden Knights win Game 1 of the 2023 Western Conference Final by a final score of 4-3 in overtime over the Dallas Stars. Now, this game was incredibly exciting. It was incredibly stressful. There was a lot of ebb and flow to it. And ultimately, while the Golden Knights did come out on top, it has absolutely no markers for what the rest of the series is going to look like. Game 1 is as Game 1 does, and mercifully for both the Dallas Stars and the Vegas Golden Knights, both teams went with their exact same rosters for the Golden Knights Game 6 game against the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars Game 7 matchup against the Seattle Kraken. So, a lot of familiar faces on the ice. Of course, there's the ever told narrative of Joe Pavelski playing against the Golden Knights. Everybody knows what happened the last time we played against him when he was in a San Jose Sharks uniform. He conked his head on the ice, and it changed the rule book in the NHL to allow 5-minute majors to be reviewed. And then he, killed us in the bubble in 5 games while he was a member of the Stars. But that's neither here nor there. The big talking point, obviously, is Pete DeBoer, the former coach of the Golden Knights, getting to the conference final against his old team. But again, it's Pete DeBoer. He does this with his new teams all the time. No one should be surprised, and nobody should be, the wiser. So obviously the game gets underway, and even before the game gets going, the atmosphere in the Fortress is electric. While I wasn't there and while they didn't show it on the broadcast, was able to see a clip of the pregame, and whoever thought it was a good idea to drop the Nightbots or the drum bots in from the ceiling deserves a massive pay raise, because that's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. So good on you. Hopefully you win your 3rd consecutive Stanley for, in-arena awards on, great job in-house production. And ultimately, obviously, it worked out pretty well, as the Golden Knights were just as entertaining as the pregame, at least for the first 12, 13 minutes of the game. And I'm going to lump it all together really big, because the Golden Knights were absolutely the better team at the start of the game, landing 11 of the first 13 shots. And while I can bellyache and say, yeah, those shots weren't dangerous, they were 11 of the first 13 shots on Jake Ottinger, who, even though he played good in Game 7 against the Seattle Kraken, had a propensity to be kind of Swiss cheese-ish in that series. And so putting pucks on net and putting rubber towards them and playing good defense at the same time is relatively a good thing. And there's no reason to be complaining. Psh, what is this? Good offensive play? Man, nah. I want goals. I don't care what it costs. Buddy, you better be careful what you wish for. Now, that right there was an actual exchange that happened between me and my brother when we were watching this game together. I said, after the first 12 minutes of the period, man, we've been playing really good, but it's a little nervy because we haven't scored yet. And we've been playing so good, but we got nothing to show for it. And he said, you're really tempting the wrath of high atop the thing. Would you rather us not play good? And I said, I don't remember what I said, because as soon as I was complaining about how we were playing good but not scoring, we suddenly stopped playing good. And while the Stars weren't doing anything dangerous, they were catching up on shot totals. They were putting pucks on Hill, who was doing a decent job repelling them. And as the time started to tick down in the first period, it really looked like the game was going to go into the first intermission at 0-0. However, and I've been watching Golden Knights games for 6 years. I have never seen this bounce before. Golden Knights go to rim the puck out from below the goal line, and it hits like the Zamboni door. Hits the door where the ice crew exits and enters the ice. It's where the Golden Knight comes in at the start of the game. Anybody who's been to the Fortress knows exactly that corner. And I can't remember the last time the puck took a weird bounce off of that, but it's the playoffs. Anything can happen at any given moment. And in this case, that's exactly what happened. Puck hits the inside edge of the Zamboni door and kicks off into the middle as if it had hit the stanchion above the glass, but, it never got above waist high. Ultimately, the Dallas Stars are able to find it. And yeah, you can blame the bounce and you can do whatever you want to try and explain away in the goal. The thing about it is the Golden Knights had the opportunity to get the puck out. They had the opportunity to recover it, and I know they kind of were on freak-out mode, especially because the puck didn't get out when it was supposed to get out, but you have to adjust to it. Golden Knights weren't able to do that. Rope Hintz takes the puck in the high slot, fires it down low, and Jason Robertson tips it home through the wickets on Adin Hill, putting the Dallas Stars up 1-0. Now, this is Jason Robertson's first goal in 8 games. He was one goal away from tying his career-long drought for goals. So good to see that he got going again. And ultimately, the Golden Knights would be a little bit shell-shocked and would limp into the first intermission, down 1-0, despite being, by and large, the better team in that first period. All right, off to the second. And in the second period, much like the first period, the Golden Knights came out and again looked like they were the better team. Difference being in this case, they weren't landing the lion's share of the shots. The Dallas Stars came out really hot, and while they weren't controlling play, they were controlling the shots on goal, ultimately catching up to the Golden Knights in shots, and I think they even passed them at one point in this period, I think early. I don't remember exactly, even though the game was just last night. The fact of the matter is the Stars were playing exactly how they wanted to play. They were playing smart, they were playing shutdown, and ultimately they're making the Golden Knights' lives very difficult. For the better part of the first half of the second period, all of the VGK shots came from the outside and from the point, and there was no traffic in front of Jake Ottinger. But as it would happen, obviously the Golden Knights have been very good at adjusting. The second period has been their best period all throughout the playoffs, which, having watched 82 regular season games, and if you'd have told me in the middle of December when the playoffs rolled around, the second period would be their best, I'd call you crazy, laugh in your face, and walk away. But I digress. The fact of the matter is the Golden Knights made some adjustments, which they've been doing all postseason. And what they decided and what they realized, I guess, is that the Dallas Stars defensemen are giving the Golden Knights defensemen, especially in the offensive zone, room to walk from the boards to the middle of the ice. Now, we have two pretty talented skating defensemen. I'd argue that Shea Theodore and Zach Whitecloud are two of our best skating defensemen. And while Theodore is getting bodied by anybody because he's Shea Theodore, Zach Whitecloud can fly a little bit under the radar because he's on that third pair. And ultimately, the third pair with Zach Whitecloud and Nick Hague gets a nice extended zone shift against the Dallas Stars' third line, but their top pair in Ryan Suter and Miro Heiskanen. What ensues next is what I can only assume is a friendly bounce in which Zach Whitecloud has practiced this a billion times since he joined the Golden Knights in 2018. He walks to the middle of the ice. He gets challenged, but not super hard by the Stars defenseman, or I guess it was the forward at this point. Whitecloud fires the shot well wide, but William Karlsson gets us inside positioning on Ryan Suter, who had been out there for nearly 3 minutes at this point. He sees the puck coming off the back wall. Ottinger committed all the way to goaltender's left to block the initial shot, which was going 4 or 5 feet wide to the left. Ultimately, the puck kicks off of the end boards, kicks out to William Karlsson, who is right there. And he taps it past Ottinger, knotting up the game at 1. Fortress goes ballistic. I'm over the moon as finally the Golden Knights have broke the seal on Jake Ottinger. And the Golden Knights, while they wouldn't have the greatest second period, even though they did wind up dinking the post right after scoring their first goal, it could have very well been 2 or 3-1 Golden Knights going into the second intermission. But again, Jake Ottinger is an incredible goalie, and you have to give him credit where credit is due. He's going to make 99.9% of the saves he's supposed to make, and then about 20% of the ones he's not supposed to make. And right now, he is living in that 20% of the saves he's not supposed to make. So 1-1 going into the second intermission is not exactly anything to hang your heads over. Going into the third period, there are a couple of pieces of history at play in this series and in this situation. The Dallas Stars, when leading going into the third period, are yet to lose in this postseason, and they were the best team in the NHL when leading after 40 minutes. It's tied up, so you can't really put much credence to that stat. But what you can put is they have 0 third period comebacks in this postseason. So one would argue that if you just get the next goal, you can kind of run away with it because the Stars are yet to come back from any deficit in the third period this postseason. And I guess while William Karlsson figured out that stat just as quickly as anybody at home did, I think the ESPN broadcast only mentioned it 28 times in the second intermission. But ultimately, relatively early on, I believe it was 2 minutes in, there's a little bit of a kerfuffle in front of the Dallas net, or a little bit of a turnover, I'm not entirely sure. And one way or another, the puck kind of finds William Karlsson in the high slot. It's a little bit loose, and he has to stretch to it. He's covering a vacant point for one of his defensemen who had activated into the rush, or into the play, rather. He gets the puck, and there are 3 Dallas Stars around him, and I am assuming, okay, this play is dead, nothing's going to happen. But for whatever reason, the Dallas Stars' most valuable player in this playoff so far, Roope Hintz, decides instead of stopping, turning and accelerating back to cover Karlsson as he cuts to the middle of the ice, because everybody on the Stars team was moving to the left and Karlsson is going to the right. He and Rope Hintz decides to take a horseshoe path and leaves the entire lane for William Karlsson, takes 2 steps forward, and rifles it 5-hole on Jake Ottinger to give the Golden Knights the 2-1 lead early in the third period. No, I'm 100% certain this is a goal Jake Ottinger is going to want back, and I'm 1,000% certain he knows the stats just as well as anybody else did. So according to the stats, Golden Knights should win this game. However, stats are only as good as the paper they're written on, and it's really easy to lie with statistics in a small sample size. Dallas Stars did very good in this situation in the regular season. They would come back and they would find a way to get games into overtime. And just a few minutes later, the Stars would continue to press and they would get a weird transition play. They would catch the Golden Knights defense lacking. Joe Pavelski would feed the puck from high above the left circle down to a vacant right circle with Rope Hintz there. Alex Pietrangelo is kind of a passenger because he has to cover the shot as well as trying to cover the pass, as he was the only one in on the play. And ultimately, Rope Hintz wires it over the shoulder of Adin Hill, and it's 2-2. And so now we're completely into the middle of nowhere. The Stars have come back. They've tied up the game. And the game kind of slows down from this point on. And while there'll be some decent opportunities, there's still 16-ish minutes to go in regulation. And so you can't really put any credence to what's going to happen. You still not happy with how we're playing? Can you just give it a rest already? A few minutes later, though, the Golden Knights would get the ball moving again. They'd get some momentum, they'd get a little pep in their step, and ultimately, one would expect that it's going to take a greasy goal to get this game going again. The Stars have played really good shutdown defense, and the Golden Knights have played really good shutdown defense, and so something's going to have to give, and it's going to have to come from somebody who maybe isn't on the radar of either team. Now, names, up and down the lineup, whether it be Harley or Hanley for the Dallas Stars on the back end, could get something going, but one of the lines for the Golden Knights that have been oddly quiet despite having decent opportunities was the Golden Knights' fourth line, Teddy Blueger, Will Carrier, and Keegan Colasar. And I guess Keegs must have taken that personally. Stars have their top line out there and their top pair in Suter and Heiskanen. And Colasar's got the puck on the near boards. He's motoring through the neutral zone. He steps across the offensive blue line and sees no one around him. So he figures, okay, I'm a big dude. I'm making league min. Or $1 million. This defenseman in front of me is making $8 million. I may as well see if he's worth it. Keegan Colasar lowers his shoulder, drives to the front of the net. He gets hooked and tackled, and he kind of ninja stars into the crease. What's interesting, though, is he was helped in by both Heiskanen and Suter. But the puck wasn't there. The puck had kicked out into the slot. Onger is basically 99% in his net. Teddy Blueger is Johnny on the spot, and he rifles it home, giving the Golden Knights a 3-2 lead again. Now, I thought this play was going to get challenged, and I think everybody in the universe thought this play was going to get challenged, but it wasn't. I guess it was because of the situation with there being 10 minutes to go. The Stars would rather not take the risk, knowing that if they're wrong, not only are they down 1, but they've also got to kill 2 minutes, and they got to kill off 1/5 of their time in regulation to come back. So again, the Stars are in position to come back, and time continues to wind down. The Stars continue to pile on the pressure. This game starts to feel a little bit like the last game at home in the Fortress between the Vegas Golden Knights and Dallas Stars. Knights had a late lead, very similar situation. I think it was also 3-2. And ultimately, the Stars were able to score late in regulation and then win the game in a shootout. Golden Knights hadn't won a single game against the Dallas Stars this regular season, going 0-1-2. And just as was happening during the regular season, the Dallas Stars get Jake Ottinger pulled with about 2 minutes to go, and less than 10 seconds later, the puck's in the Golden Knights' net. A point shot kind of rattled around in front of Adin Hill, and ultimately Jamie Benn just happened to find the puck at the wrong place at the wrong time, and Hill happened to just lift his toe up just ever so slightly at the wrong moment to allow the puck to slide under him into the net, and we have a tie game. And the Golden Knights would almost score a few seconds later, I'll give them that. Had a couple of decent opportunities, and obviously prior to the eventual game-tying goal, they had not one but 2 2-on-1s that could have extended the deficit for the Stars, but didn't convert on either of those. But at this point, the game's in overtime, and ifs and buts, cookies and nuts, Merry Christmas. You all know the saying. The Golden Knights can't focus on what could have been, and they have to focus on what they can do. The Dallas Stars are 0-2 this series or this postseason in overtimes, and the Vegas Golden Knights are 1-0 with their one win being a double overtime thriller in Winnipeg against the Jets in Game 3 of the first round. Dallas Stars have lost not one, but both of their Game 1s in their respective 2 series
in overtime, losing in double overtime to the Minnesota Wild and in single overtime to the Seattle Kraken, the game that Pavelski scored 4 goals. So the puck drops in overtime, and everybody's really nervous. Obviously, it's overtime. It's the Western Conference Final. And I, in particular, am very nervous. And I kind of have to call back to an exchange that happened during regulation. I believe it was during the second period.
Wait, did Gary Wallace just call out Brett Howden for not playing good? I think that might be what it sounded like. I don't know. He said something about moving him down the lineup to give Michael Amadio a shot. I don't know. You know what? I'm a fan of Brett Howden. He's going to score tonight. Again, this was an actual conversation that happened. Ultimately, 2 minutes into overtime, or a minute and a half into overtime, rather, Chandler Stevenson hops on his horse in the neutral zone and kind of drives up the near boards, as he's done throughout the playoffs and throughout this game in particular. He's driving, he gets to just below the circles, and he bumps the puck out to Mark Stone in the high slot. Stone, in a strong shooting position, but sees that he's got Brett Howden in front of him because he was the third Golden Knight into the zone, decides to pass up the shot and feed a really, really crispy pass down to Brett Howden. Now, Howden, I got to get him on this one. He should have scored on this, should have scored right there. Ultimately, the pass was a little fast for him. He wound up firing a little bit wide. But, because of the frequency and the speed behind that pass, Jake Ottinger completely sold out. He was swimming in his net. The puck is behind the goal now, and Howden is the first one to it, even though Heiskanen is also behind the net. He, and Brett Howden, pulls it off the liner, like off the kind of area just on the bottom of the net, keeps it on his forehand, takes like 2 shuffle steps to his left, and sees that Ottinger is kind of in front of his net trying to reset himself. And this is a play that I've seen a lot of forwards go to, especially in the last couple of years when the goalie's a little bit out of position. Howden just puts it in front of the net. He just puts it to the front, and I'm sure he was trying to bank it in, and that's not exactly what happened. The puck comes to the front of the net and gets lodged under Ottinger's left ankle because he's in the butterfly. Both legs are down. His ankles are down. But because because of how flippin' fast Jake Ottinger was spinning into his net, he just kind of uncorked himself and put his left foot to the back of the goal. He's fallen down. He flopped down. Nobody knows where the puck is except for Brett Howden and the official. They're both on top of it. Howden looks down. Ottinger lifts up his foot to try and stack the pads because he thinks the puck's in front of him. When he picks up his foot, he reveals the puck is in the back of the net. Howden jumps about as high as I could possibly imagine. Mark Stone does whatever the hell this is. And ultimately, the game ends. Golden Knights have won 4-3 in overtime. Fortress goes berserk. The celebration on the bench, on the ice, and down into the locker room by the players and the coaching staff of the Golden Knights was just incredible. It was a game where the Golden Knights were the better team for large swaths of it, but still had to go to overtime to decide an eventual winner. It didn't take 4 overtimes. It took 1 minute and 35 seconds. In your face, Carolina. We can take care of business a little bit faster. That being said, Game 2 is a matinee game, a noon local start time, which is weird. The Golden Knights don't have a great history in matinee start times, with the notable exception of New Year's Eve games, which they are yet to drop. So, little bit of a weird thing. It's also odd to have a conference final game starting at noon, but I don't even know why. I don't make the broadcast schedules. It's going to be very exciting. Matinee starts always bring out some weird play, and the Golden Knights have an opportunity to take a 2-0 series lead for the first time this postseason. They've been 1-1 after the 2 home games, both against the Jets and against the Oilers. Going up 2-0 on the Dallas Stars would be huge because of how good the Stars have been at home this postseason, and it would also be huge because of how good the Golden Knights have been on the road this season. I'm not going to put the cart before the horse, but even though it did go to overtime, the Golden Knights look like the faster, more in sync team. Yes, the elite players for the Stars scored. Robertson finally broke his drought. Roope Hintz is continuing to be an absolute breakout player. And Jamie Benn scored the most Jamie Benn goal I think anybody has ever seen. So they're playing good, the Stars are. The Golden Knights are playing great. But, Jack Eichel was quiet. Mark Stone, despite getting, I think, an assist on the eventual game winner in overtime, was quiet. William Karlsson has been on fire recently. The Misfits are responsible for 7 of the last 9 goals for the Golden Knights this postseason, so they're hot. Depth beats front-end talent, and it's clear the Golden Knights are better on the forecheck. So if those trends continue, I think Game 2 on Sunday afternoon is going to be incredibly interesting, and I can't wait to watch it. Ultimately, the Golden Knights take the 1-0 series lead in the Western Conference Final and are just 3 wins away from playing for the Stanley Cup for the second time in their 6-year franchise history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, like it. If you really liked it, be sure to subscribe so you never miss one of these. We're almost there. I'm sure of it. We're almost there. Comment down below if you enjoyed the game as much as I did, if you enjoy watching me talk to myself, or, just want to interact with me and, talk about all things Vegas Golden Knights hockey. Thank you very much, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.